Hello and welcome back to the channel. I want to follow up on a previous video or two that I've made about consciousness in the simulation and whether we are actually in a simulation, in an adventure that's here for us to come into bodies and explore. And I ended the previous videos, especially the second one, on not an entirely positive note, in the sense that of talking about what if this simulation has been, in a sense, rigged or manipulated, if there have been those who have intentionally hijacked us in this game, at least those of us who didn't know we were being hijacked, who weren't aware of it, a little bit akin to the Matrix or or the system, the machine. Because I think a lot of us feel like thwarted, feel like life is such a grind and it has just gotten worse. And I want to give a more positive spin on this, to come back to maybe it's not all just so bad. Maybe it's not all negative. Because that's not really what I currently believe. I've certainly gone there. Like, I have been in places where I felt quite cynical, quite skeptical, quite fear-based about where we are headed. And I think from one perspective, if we are truly living in just a 3D, single, linear reality right now, humanity might be kind of screwed based upon what we're seeing going on. I mean, there are war drums beating, and there's just all sorts of fear and angst, and there's like the F word, as in, how do I say that without causing problems here on the social medias? The fascism word, I'll just say it out loud. There are lots of things going on that have created a lot of fear about the possibilities for our future, including in me. I have done plenty of that fear. And I have also gotten to a point where I have very little of it left. And at the first level, you could say that's, this thing that people have talked about for years in sort of spiritual, I'm not talking religious spiritual. I'm not into religions because they're often about control. I'm talking about like a spirituality of the idea of surrendering to what is happening, surrendering to the world as it is and letting go. And that certainly has merit and has benefit. But if you're like me, then you like to think about things, maybe a bit too much. I certainly do. I overthink things to the nth degree. And I like to understand the world and try to understand what's going on, and feel like that understanding gives me some guidance or something to hang my hat on. And what helps me, apart from just this sort of more nebulous thing of surrender, is actually coming to believe in this model of the world, much of which I've shared in the previous videos, but that has an important component I haven't really talked about, that I've hinted at but not talked about. So in a lot of esoteric circles, like if you go search for this idea of split of the worlds or ascension or even rapture, although I think rapture is more corrupted by it's like a corrupted version of the same idea. The core idea behind all of these terms, is that we are at a unique point in history. And I know everybody thinks they're at a unique point in history. And I'll just say, I've debated with myself a lot. I'll get into that in a second. But I'll just tell you what this is. At the core of this is the idea that the human race has reached a particular point where the deeper reality is going to shift, or is shifting substantially, and that is going to lead to some very surprising changes for us in this physical simulation that we exist in, that we think is our primary reality, even though I have come to believe that it is not our primary reality. It is the simulation, it is the dream. And so that the idea is that this shift is a positive one, at least for those who want to be a part of something better. They want to be a part of creating a better reality, one that is more egalitarian, that has less hierarchy, less authority, is more rooted in the divine feminine. I'm not saying completely divine feminine, but more rooted in those characteristics represented by that of compassion and care for people. And that is less about this constant grind and constant striving and constant need for more, 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 more all of the time, more being and less doing. And that this reality is literally shifting to support those of us who choose that in being able to embody that without interference, with no longer having the interference from those who would take that away from us, who would prevent that, because there seem to be people who would like to prevent that. And this is the thing about looking at the surface level of things. If you just look at the news and what's going on in the world, well, first of all, news is, regardless of which end of political spectrums or where you are, even if you're in the middle, news is pretty unreliable these days. So that's flawed. But more flawed than that is just that if we're looking at what's going on physically, that is the old news. Because if, like me, you come to believe that reality is actually, the basis of this reality is formed at that energetic level, at that more consciousness level, and that's the root of this, that's the root of the experience, then changes at that consciousness level then later lead to the changes at this surface physical level. And many teachers have talked about this. It's just that we humans have been convinced to ignore those. And I ignored that for many years. But in coming to believe that more and more, I have been able to see patterns that I couldn't see, and have come to actually believe that some of the people talking about this split or this ascension might actually be onto something. Now, I'm not 100% convinced, because my rational mind, I was trained as that scientist, my rational mind is constantly analyzing things like that, sometimes being overly cynical about things like that, sometimes being too accepting. So I go back and forth. So I'm not here to tell you, this is the truth, you must accept it. I mean, there are people who will make videos like that, and you can go out and find them. And there are others who will say, no way. What I like to do is explore the possibilities and consider, could that update my model of reality in a way that helps, that contributes something to making me understand, or helping me understand what's going on, and maybe bringing more light and positivity to it. Because if this model is true, if this idea, I wouldn't say it's a full-blown model because I don't fully understand it, but if it's true, it really means that those of us who want to create a better reality may have that opportunity unimpeded in the next few years, starting in the next few years. We may have to go through some more chaos and crap to get there, but that gives me hope to sort of live through that chaos and crap to get to that place where it's really the time to start building. Consciousness shifts are important, and I think we have already undergone some of that as a species. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've noticed that there are people who sometimes seemed more heavy and more cynical, some of whom have lightened up despite all of the things going on out there. How could that happen? Well, there's not a good explanation for it. I mean, I guess you could have, the statistical explanation of whatever bias, the there's a term for this. It's like when you're looking for something, you're searching for something, and then there's a statistical bias because you find it. So there could be that. Or it could be that something deeper is actually going on. And one reason that I believe that something deeper is going on is that I have received, when I go see anybody online claiming something like that, I check internally because I'm coming to trust that intuition, that guidance more and more, because it hasn't so far steered me in any way that's obviously wrong. And in a lot of ways, that's obviously proven by what has happened afterwards very right. Not 100% right, but that same guidance that I receive says, even at this deeper spiritual consciousness level, that they can't predict the future, because if you think of us in this space point in time, they can't predict what choices we are going to make with our free will that might move us to different points in the timelines. So anyway, you can take it or leave it, but it helps me. So I want to share a little bit more. The idea is that we have been existing in this belief system that says we are creatures of 3 dimensions plus time, if you consider that a dimension. And 3 dimensions plus time, and then it's linear and one way forward. And that we have been convinced to stay stuck on that timeline, that in reality, in this simulation, that we can, through what you would call resonance, through changing our inner state, we can shift timelines, at least in subtle ways, so that we line up with different future events, that we can actually picture or imagine things in the future and connect with that possible reality, and through our own actions and other people's actions line up with the more possibility of that reality becoming true. None of that was taken away from us, except for that I think many of us became convinced that no, reality is just like, in order to achieve or receive anything, we have to do certain actions. And then there are all the people out there saying, oh, just manifest, and it will appear. And for a lot of us, that seems to sometimes work or not work at all, but it certainly doesn't seem consistent. So what's going on with that? Well, if this reality is more responsive to us than we think, and we don't believe that we can manifest, we don't believe we can line up with that reality we want, we are convinced that it's impossible, then we won't even take advantage of that. I was just talking to somebody today who shared that he grew up in an environment being told that don't be a dreamer, stop being a dreamer, just get down and get to work and do your thing, like work harder. And he was repeatedly told that. So he was disappointed, and he learned how to walk around through life being disappointed. And I have done that a great deal in my life, walking around being disappointed by not believing in so-called magic, because if things are happening at the consciousness level that we do not understand, from our perspective, that would be seen as magic. It doesn't mean there's no explanation for it. It just means that we don't have a current explanation from our limited viewpoint and limited belief systems. So a lot of us, I think, like this person I was talking to, are walking around with that sense of oh no, that stuff's not real, and dreaming doesn't matter, and I've just got to work hard. And so this person I was talking to is very stuck in that working hard and striving mode to make anything happen. And yet this person has striven a lot, as have I, and hasn't made it very far in terms of the results that person wants in life. And I think that's so often the case for so many of us, that we strive and strive and strive, and then we say, well, that's not real. And again, could it be that instead of that tells us something about our reality, instead that it tells us that we have a fundamental misunderstanding of how reality works? And that, again, that wool has been pulled over our eyes. And that what if we are at a point where we are ready for the wool to be pulled off, for the matrix to fall, or for the for this, for us to understand more about our true nature and to be able to connect with that true nature more readily, so that we can start creating more with ease. Like I was talking also to somebody about how we were talking about striving and how much most of us like strive. We have to strive, strive, strive. That's what we're trained to do. I've been trying to be, not strive. It's hard to let go of those old striving habits. But the striving tells us we don't have something like that, we're incomplete and we're insufficient. My cats don't strive. They may go out and chase rodents and rid our yard of some of the little things that dig like holes in the garden, but they don't strive. They just go out and have fun with it. And they may get better as they go. Certainly they are better now at that than when they were kittens. So they were without striving. They learned, they grew, but there was no striving there. Trees to grow high don't strive. It's just so interesting to think about, what would this world be like if we didn't have to strive? Like if we could just enjoy life without all of that. And I know, I mean, it's easy to have a whole bunch of objections to that. But there is, again, my own guidance, many other people that I have seen who have similar guidance, saying that we are receiving help in this transition. That this isn't just like sort of a random thing. It's not some product of the temple of randomness. That instead, it is a time where we are, at least enough of us, not all of us by any means, but enough of us, maybe it's only 10 or 20%, I don't know, but enough that we have called in help to start rising to this next level. Rising implies hierarchy, and I don't think it's about hierarchy. It's just a level of existence where all of this striving and all of the sort of bad stuff that we're seeing is no longer necessary for us. But that we have to go through seeing this bad stuff in order to let go of the old, let go of the striving. Like if you're like me, you look at everything going on and say, wait, I strived for so many decades of my life to accomplish things, and this is what we get. This is what I get. Screw that. Like, I'm done with it. And I think many of us needed to en masse reach that point where we're just like, yeah, no, like no more of that, where we really are ready for something different. And now we can receive help. Because again, if I'm right about the rules of this reality, this simulation for souls, it's that we have free will, ultimately. So things aren't done to us that we don't call in or ask at some level of our being. And I'll have to make videos about that because I can hear the potential objections or concerns about that statement. But I'm just stating what I have come to believe and sharing that in case it helps you. So it's interesting to think about this idea that could we be ready for something different, and as a result calling in help, but not obvious physical help, the prince riding in on the horse, but a deeper level of help, at a deeper level of consciousness or reality, where the help says, oh, now you're finally ready for something different? Okay, we're here. We are here to help. We are here to help you shift your reality so you no longer have to do this. But here's the crux of that, is so many of our systems, human systems, are built on these old ways of being. They almost like are built to force us into those old ways of being. And if many of us are shifting our consciousness, well, it's going to require new systems to sustain a shift in consciousness, which is a whole other topic. But it also requires letting go of the old systems. Like the old systems actually have to get out of our way if we are going to shift things. Things like the monetary system and the political system. Things that, our political system, at least here in the United States, is very much based on winner take all. Our monetary system is fundamentally based on always doing more, creating more dollars, more debt, more work, more dollars, more debt, more work, more, a never-ending cycle. And so what if this chaos we're going through is actually just part of the transition to the new, helping us let go of the old so that we can truly be ready? And I know I've talked about the kitchen remodel, but it's more fundamental than that, because I believe this shift in consciousness does actually give us the opportunity to create essentially a new reality for ourselves. One where the old ways of striving and work hard and being, protecting what you have so carefully and being completely transactional in our relationships with things like money, that those can start going away. That we can replace them truly with something better, but it's going to require a big shift, and that we are getting help with that. And so then you might ask, some people say there's a split of worlds. Now, this is where it gets pretty metaphysical, and I don't know. I can't prove this, but who knows? The metaphysical idea is that, well, if free will is a thing, is an important thing, here in this world, a lot of us struggle with that because there are so many people who are choosing a different path that want to impose their path on us. There's that F word I used earlier, but there's also there's just that it doesn't matter which side somebody is on a political spectrum. There are so many people who want to control other people and have them do it. They think their way is the right way, and those other people's way is the wrong way. And it's people trying to control people. And a new reality that is based upon increased sovereignty, but also increased community and unity, you can't have that kind of constant striving to control other people, which that control comes from fear. I fear that I'm going to lose control of what's going on in the environment because I think I create my reality by moving stuff and people around in that environment. So I have to control it. I have to control them. I don't like them. I'm afraid of them, or I'm angry at them, or whatever. So I'm going to go control those people. That's not compatible with a higher consciousness, free will based version of reality. It's just not compatible. It has to go away. Now, I think there are more and more people in the world who are willing to let go of that and just say, live and let live. You do you. As long as you're not trying to take something from me, you do you. As long as you're not hurting other people, you do you. There's more and more of that. But that's only a portion of the population who is ready for that. There's another portion of the population that is very insistent on clinging to that mode of control and probably will go to their graves here in this life cycle, this incarnation, will go to their graves trying to control, trying to cling to that control. And those two things are not compatible. You can't have this free society with a group of people, even if they're relatively small, but willing to just use any means necessary to try to control. It's not compatible. So my understanding of this idea of a split is that in order for those of us who want to create a better reality to be free to do so, that those who do not, who want to remain in control and extraction, need to be a part of a different reality if we're going to not violate their free will, to play out their drama, their their journey of consciousness, their soul's incarnation. They need to be part of a reality where they can continue playing with these ideas of control and experiencing the results of trying to control others and others trying to control them. And they experience that enough until eventually they'll figure it out and no longer incarnate there, like ascend, move beyond that. And that this actually, like if there's a literal split of the worlds in some way, that you can benefit free will for all. You can make that happen. Now you might say that's impossible, and the physicist in me says, wow, that's pretty hard. Although I can see a path, because again, if you think about Schrodinger's wave equation, which is the quantum wave equation that says everything is a wave until a choice is made and it becomes a particle in one place and time. So all of this reality that we see, this process is happening constantly, where there are different possibilities and they happen to manifest somehow as a single particle at a single point in time. And then they go back into this wave, and then they come back to a particle and then go to a wave. It's like the craziest thing ever. And we don't know what determines that. I mean, physics still doesn't know what determines that. Physics is still busy out there trying to look for the next particle and the next particle, instead of really understanding this wave nature of our reality. And in the wave nature, there's nothing that says some couldn't shift into one reality and others in another reality. There's nothing that prohibits that in terms of our deepest quantum mechanical reality. Now, according to our current understanding of quantum mechanics from a physics point of view, it is highly improbable. Highly improbable. But highly improbable is not the same as impossible. And I'm starting to believe in the highly improbable more and more, because I think statistics is often a thing where we just see repeated patterns. And since we don't understand what underlies those patterns, we use statistics to try to understand it. To try to say, okay, that's improbable. Probably won't happen. But do we know why it won't happen? Nassim Nicholas Taleb addressed this in his book on black swans. The Black Swan, he talked about how our statistical models do not tell us what really can and can't happen, because they just don't account for outliers. I have come to believe that maybe we are at this point of an outlier event. Now, I still debate and resist, but there is evidence. One of the things that many people have said is that part of this process is potential even biological changes that help us make this shift to this new reality, where, for example, we will have stronger access to our intuition, to our ability to read somebody and know whether they are deceiving us or telling the truth. That this will help with transparency in this new reality, because there won't be as much manipulation and as many lies. And that requires an actual sort of upgrade to our hardware. And many people are talking about feeling tired, feeling sometimes that things are surreal, having headaches, having ears ringing more than usual, and so on, as symptoms of this process. And I've been having some of those as well. So it's interesting to think about. Then let me address the final thing. Like, well, what if I'm totally wrong about this? Well, even if I'm totally wrong about this, okay, so the first thing is, I am not telling anybody, unlike all those people who talk about rapture, or, sell your house or whatever. No, I'm not telling anybody to quit your job because of what a random person on YouTube said. Do not do that. Do not give everything up because Morgan said, well, maybe this is real, this split thing. I'm not giving up on everything I've been doing until I really am more clear about what's happening. But even if, as long as you don't like do something like giving up on a job or career or whatever, there's no harm in thinking about what could a better world look like. A better world without all the negativity, without the harmful systems, without the harmful manipulation. If we were to build better systems and support people better, what would that truly look like without all of that interference? What would that look like? And even if it never comes to pass, this separation, this split, this ascension, even if it never comes to pass, it will give us a vision, those of us who've tuned into that, a vision of how we can create something better. And maybe we can go ahead and create it anyway, regardless of whether this split thing happens. Maybe we just have to create, cities and areas that are walled off, and the people who want to do all the negative stuff, they can go be there in their negative thing, and then we create a better reality. So my point being that even if you believe in the least bit about this idea of manifestation or resonance or lining up, imagining and envisioning things and then lining up with that envisionment, then this is a positive thing to do, to think about a possible future reality that is truly better and truly much more free of all the negativity, and what we could build with that. Because let's build it regardless. That's what I'm here to do. And then if we have help, if there's actually some kind of massive shift or change, that's awesome. Just awesome sauce on top of it. Because resistance, I know some people are really into resistance right now, and that only goes so far. I mean, it can be an important thing, but ultimately you have to have a reason to live, a reason to move forward, an inspiration to move forward in life. And I think that inspiration comes from, let's build something truly better, not just take these old systems and just adjust them again, which has happened time and time again. Let's build the whole thing anew in a much better way, and invite those who want to be with us in that, and say the people who don't want to be a part of that, not based on race, gender, or color, or anything else, just based on simply their choice. Do you want to be a part of something that operates in this way, or do you want to operate in a different way? Okay, great. You're free to go somewhere else and do that. Interesting to think about. All right, well, let me wrap up with, first of all, I would love to hear more of your questions, more of your thoughts. This is a small community, building one step at a time. It's always how it happens. Small community, and I would love to make more videos on what you're thinking about. I mean, I have tons of ideas, can make many, many more, but I would love to hear what you want. What do you question? What do you wonder about? And I'm happy to address that. And also, of course, there is that little like button that you can hit, or heart button, depending on which platform you're on. I would love that. That always helps get the videos out there. And that subscribe so that you can hear about future videos. That's really helpful too. Helps promote the channel, helps promote the message, because I'm trying to create a message of hope, create a message of inspiration, but not one that's just rooted in like, just, ignore all the bad stuff and just be hopeful. That's not me. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to do this with more nuance, with more realism in a sense, although you might say what I'm talking about, a split of worlds, isn't realism, but I have thought through this stuff a lot, at least. And it's not just like, hey, let's just be more hopeful. No, let's actually think about the reality that we want to create and go out and create that. And that's what gives me hope. And I hope it does for you as well. All right, I'll see you next time.